Okay, we're here at the Greater Games booth, and we're going to be looking at a new prototype for Spirit Island. Chris Bedell is here to give us a quick rundown and demonstration.
Greetings.
Chris, how's it going?
Fantastic.
Can you give us a little bit of insight into Spirit Island?
Spirit Island is a super cool game. It's one of my favorite games to play right now. We're doing a lot of playtesting on it. It is designed by Eric Roos, the brilliant designer that brought you Fealty, and we've been having a lot of fun working with him on this very thematic cooperative game. It's a reverse worker placement game in that the game is playing a worker placement game against you, and it's putting out explorers and building settlements and cities and trying to take over the land, and you play as these ethereal spirits of the land of this previously untouched, uncivilized island, and now all these invaders from foreign places are coming in and building things and blighting the land with their presence, and you have to scare them off and destroy their cities and preserve the land to be the natural, spirity place that it is. So.
All right. Give us a little view of this awesome modular board.
Sure. So the game it's a 2 to 4 player game. It's a 1 to 4 player game even, but you can each of the game boards corresponds to a player. So if we're playing with 3 players, which is what we're going to set up for today, we remove one of the boards, and they're all balanced, so you can remove any one you want, and then the board gets set up. Each of the boards has a coast and then inland areas, and so each board has to have the coast on the outside. For the 3 players, it sets up like this, which is super cool. Look how cool that looks. For 2 players, it would set up like this, or like this if you wanted to use a different one, you know, no big deal. But we're gonna set up for a 3-player game because I particularly like the way the 3-player game looks. And so then each of the lands, so not the coasts, because the coasts aren't lands, but each of the lands on the island have little icons that indicate what starts there. So for instance, this one here, it starts with this little pawn, which is an explorer, so it's an invader explorer that's there, and it starts with one of these huts, which is an islander. So we know that the islanders have presence there, as do the invaders. And each of the different ones, you'd put out the different things the board calls for. So it only takes a couple minutes to set it up. It's actually pretty quick, especially once you've played a couple times. You're like, oh yeah, sure, those are all out now.
All right.
And so once you've done your setup, and I'm just going to put out some cities here, and I'm going to put out, just where they go, some islanders. I'm not going to do the whole board setup because that's not super crucial, but I want to at least show some of where things go to give a feel for the island. Then each player would pick one of the various spirits to play as. And Joel, we have you here with Lightning Swift Strike. You are a spirit of the lightning and of the air. And you have your track here that shows your how many cards you can play a turn and how much energy you regain per turn. And you start with all of these discs covering up most of the track except for the first one. So at the beginning of the game, you'll get 2 card plays per turn and you'll regain 7 energy at the end of your turn. Then at the setup section, it says you have these remaining 3 spirit presence discs, and you put them on your board, which this is your board because it's the one closest to you. You put 2 presents on the highest numbered sand. This sand is numbered 7, and this sand is number 4, and 1 presence in the other sand. So that is where your starting presence is. You've got 1 presence here and 2 presents there, and because you have 2 presents, that counts as a sacred site, which is important for certain powers. So everybody would go through, I would have my character and I'd put my stuff out too, but that doesn't super matter for now. And then you have your starting hand of cards, and each of the spirits has their own 4 unique starting cards that show what your abilities are. Your power cards indicate, in the top corner here, you have how much energy it costs to play these cards. Along the side, it shows which elements that card generates. So when you have these cards in play, like this card generates 1 wind and 1 fire. So if you have certain powers to say, hey, if you have this certain amount, like your innate powers indicate, if you on your turn have 2 wind and 3 fire, you could destroy a settlement. If you had 3 wind and 4 fire, you could both destroy a settlement and, it says you may instead destroy a city. If it said you may also, or you may do a different thing. As long as you have the energy to pay for it, you can do them all. So if you have 5 wind and 6 fire, you can really do all of these things, because if you have 5 wind and 6 fire, you also have 2 wind and 3 fire. You don't have to spend your wind and lose your wind in order to use those other abilities.
Okay.
So, as we see here with your presence track, on your turn, you can play 2 cards and you'll regain 2 energy. We're gonna go ahead and at the end of your turn, you'll note you have a growth phase. The last thing you do is a growth phase, and you choose to either pay 5 energy to regain all the power cards you've ever used back into your hand, and you'd get to get a new card, and I'll talk about that in a second. Or you can pay 4 energy to put out a bunch of presents. You would put out 1 presence within range 2, so we're gonna take this 1 presence off your track and put it over here within range 2. Then you'd put 1 presence within range 1, so we're going to take 1 off of this track and put a presence over here. and then 1 presence within range 1, so we'll take another off of the energy track and put it here. So now you've spread out your presence a lot more, and you've got a lot more control. You still have a sacred site here, but these are just places with regular presence, which is a great setup for you.
Okay.
So the reason I did all that presence there is to let you play 3 cards, and that way we could see, all right, so on your turn, you have 5 energy on your track right now, which means you can pay for up to 5 energy worth of cards. So you're gonna choose to pay this card, which because it has this red border and says fast here, means it happens before the Invader actions. And then you're also gonna have these cards. So because you've put out these cards, you in fact have 3 wind and 3 fire, which will let you use at least your basic innate power.
Gotcha.
So now you have all these power cards, all these things. This is the beginning of the game. This last card goes back in your hand. At the beginning of the game, you've got your setup, you've got your things. At the beginning of the round, rather, you've played your cards. So that's the first thing we do.
Right.
Then the second thing we do is any fast powers you have. So you have your fast power of Lightning's Boon, and you can let another player use one of their slow powers as a fast power. So I could be like, oh, I've got this slow power that moves some things around. You'd be like, great, you can do that fast right now. It's like, oh, cool. So I'll use one of my slow things and I'll do it fast. Everybody wins.
Right.
So we've done that. So now the fast things have been done, it's time for the Invader actions. So first thing we go over here to fear effects. Fear effects are the things that we do that come from the fear deck that are things that the spirits have done to scare off the invaders. So whenever we generate fear, we move these fear tokens. So that you do a thing that does 1 fear, great, 1 fear. We destroy a settlement, that creates a fear. We destroy a city, that creates 2 fear. Once we've moved enough fear from this circle up to this circle, all the fear goes back, and a fear card goes over here. So let's say we've generated a fear before this turn happens.
All right.
At the beginning of the turn, the first thing you do is you turn over this fear card and do what it says. It says, reprisal against the islanders. We destroy an islander in each land with 2 or more buildings. Fortunately, we don't currently have any lands with 2 or more buildings, but if we did, because the invaders are scared, they're attacking the islanders. So that's a bad thing for us, but it's a thing that happens. A lot of them are good things. Let me see if I can get one. Here, on each board, we add an explorer to a land without invaders. That's also a bad thing. Look, this game's not easy. Here, this is awesome. Remove a settlement from every land with 2 or more islanders.
Okay.
So that would just, anywhere there's 2 islanders, it would remove a settlement. And that's all those are level 0 fear effects, which aren't very scary. As you move through the fear deck, you get to terror level 1. Terror level 1, you tend to get more things. Each land with cities that destroy beasts. See, this is a bad one for us. I tell you, the random draw here is not being favorable. Yep, also scary. There we go, so this one removes all explorers, which are the white little pawns. It removes all explorers with lands with islanders. So anywhere the islanders would remove the explorers. So, and then level 2 and level 3, the fear effects get better and better.
Okay.
Let me see if we have a really good scary one here. Yeah, that's a great one. The first one I pulled up replaces a city with a settlement. So each player, there's 3 of us in this 3-player game, we each pick a city on the board and turn it into a settlement.
Okay.
That is a huge problem for the invaders. That's a great effect. So yeah, the level 3 fear effects are really potent.
Right.
And if each level of fear we get through changes the victory condition favorably for us. Where at the beginning of the game,
Right.
as according to the back of the deck here, if there are 0 cities and 0 settlements, we win the game. But as we get into terror level 1, if there are 0 cities and fewer settlements than players, we win the game. And then at terror level 2, if there are 0 cities, we win the game. And then as we get to terror level 3, if there are fewer settlements than cities than players, we win the game. And then finally, if there are no cards in the fear deck, we just straight up win the game.
Okay.
So fear is absolutely a way we can win the game. Another way we can win the game is by completing certain victory conditions on fear cards. I think we saw one right off the bat here. Yeah, where if the terror level is 3, and there are more islanders than buildings, we win. And so this could be a point in the game in which you're like, okay, hold on now. We really want to cultivate islander growth. We want to try to make sure to protect the islanders and get more of them out there and grow the islander population because that's straight up good for us. So there's lots of interesting interplay that happens there. After the fear effects, we go on to the events. You take an event card, you turn it over, we do what it says. First it says beasts attack, so anywhere there are beast tokens, they're gonna attack some things. Then the islanders are gonna do some attacking, then the exploration is gonna happen. So the events that happen are gonna be board events, are gonna be events that happen to invaders, and they're gonna be events that happen with the islanders. So all sorts of different stuff that happens, and it just kind of adds a bunch more randomness to the game as it progresses.
Okay.
So that's good. After the fear and after the event, we have the invader actions. So at the very beginning of the game, we're going to take the first card and put it here in the explore section. So then on that first turn, because it's an explorer, we will explore into the hills, which means we look at every hills land and see if any of them have a source of explorers. This one is not going to explore because it has a city in it. This one doesn't have a source of explorers because there's no adjacent buildings or coast. But these two both have adjacent coast. So we're going to get an explorer here because the coast is a source of explorers. Now this land over here doesn't have any adjacent buildings, but this land does have an adjacent city, so it's also going to explore here.
Okay.
Not that bad. We only got out 4 explorers, or 3 explorers off of that, but still, we want to avoid that. Then at the end of the turn, this will go here, and a new card will come out. So we know that next turn, they're going to explore the wetlands and build in the hills. Let's fast forward to that happening.
Right.
Now we're here, we're exploring in the wetlands, so again, no source of invaders, no source of invaders. Yes, a source of invaders over here, because it's got a coast. And this one also has a source of invaders, so those 2 get explored. Then we build in the hills. This is where it starts to get bad. Any hills that have presence get builded. So there's an explorer there, so they build a settlement. There's explorers here and here in these hills, so they also get settlements. If those explorers, so let's say this one already had a settlement, it would also get a city. Instead of a settlement, it would build a city. Now when they're tied up, if there's both a city and a settlement and they would build here, they get a settlement. This could start to get really awful for us. So, then we, at the end of that, we slide it over to Ravage, slide this over to Build, and put out, they're going to explore in the jungles. So this kind of gives you an idea of the first 2 turns of the game. They will only explore in the first turn, build in the second game, build and explore in the second turn, and in the third turn they will Ravage, build and explore. So this gives us a little bit of a beginning point where the spirits are pretty weak at the beginning. We're still kind of learning how to do what we're doing, and we're dealing with the fact that the board already has presence. It gives us some catch up before it starts getting really awful.
Okay.
So here we are for this phase. Now we're exploring in the forest. So yes, we've got a source of explorers here. We don't have one here. We do have one here. We don't have one there or there, but we don't need one there because there's a city. Okay, we've explored in the jungle. Now we build in the wetlands. Wetlands, we pretty much just only build here and here. And because there's already a city here, we do build a settlement there. Now we ravage in the hills. This is the worst part. Okay. Ravaging can damage the land, and it can damage islanders. We don't want either of those 2 things to happen, but they're going to happen. Okay. The land essentially has 2 hit points, where if the land takes 2 damage, it gets blighted, and blight is bad for many reasons, which we'll talk about soon. I'm gonna put some of your presence over here so we see what happens with that. Yeah, no, I just put you into a really terrible area. Sorry about that. That's not good. Explorers do 1 point of damage. Settlements and have 1 hit point. Settlements do 2 points of damage and have 2 hit points. Cities do 3 points of damage and have 3 hit points. We're ravaging the hills. So here, first off, this is a place, these don't have anything in them, so no ravaging happens here. These have this, so that does 3 damage. 3 damage just automatically blights the land. And we have this card over here that says the island is healthy. At the beginning of the game, we put 3 blight on this card for each player. So there's 9 blight here. And as blight gets added to the board, we remove it from this card. If all of this blight gets removed from this immediately flips over. The land is now tainted, which is bad. And there's some alternate loss conditions, and if all the blight gets removed, we add a bit more blight. How much blight? We add 2 blight per player in the box below, so we put 6 blight here, and if all of that blight moves to the board, we lose the game to that. Also, I didn't mention earlier, if anyone's spirit ever has no presence on the board, we immediately lose the game, because we all need to have some presence on the board to stay in. Okay. So, we're blighting the land here. Boop, that's bad. We are blighting the land here, because it does 3 damage, there's nothing there to stop it. No attacking happens here, and yes, attacking happens here. So first off, when the land is damaged, first the invaders attack the land, and then they attack islanders. So here, they do 3 damage, which blights the land, and there's 1 leftover damage. The 1 leftover damage hits this invader, this islander, but if islanders have 2 hit points and do 2 damage, so he has 1 hit point left. This islander city has 1 hit point left, and that 1 hit point is going to go away at the end of the turn. The damage is going to reset at the end of the round. But because the land where the islander got attacked, it attacks back and it does 2 damage, and it'll destroy the settlement. So that settlement's gone, and that adds a point of fear to our fear track. So that's good at least, but we paid a blight for it, which isn't a good trade. Then over here in this last land, this is where everything is bad. Look at this. We've got a city, 2 settlements, and an explorer. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 damage. Nice. 2 of the damage hits the land first, so it blights the land. And upon the blight hitting the land, your presence is destroyed and removed from the game. Yes. So you've just lost some presence, and you can't get it back. That's bad for so many reasons. Right. We still have 6 leftover damage. That 6 leftover damage is going to hit the islander and kill the islander, so the islander doesn't even get to attack back. Okay. There's 4 leftover damage, but it doesn't matter. We've already hit all the things that already hit. We attacked the land, doing blight. We attacked the islander, killing the islanders off. This here just became, in the last round, became one of the points that the map is going to, and you'll see very quickly because it's a source of explorers as well, it's going to become a problem area. And so that sort of shift in the game, now the invaders are going to be pushing from there, and we as spirits are going to have to really hem that in and close that off and try to save that place. And there are various things that can do it. So as the game progresses, at any point, if any of us get knocked out, or if they blight the land, or if they run through their through stage 1 and stage 2 and stage 3 of the invader deck, they can win that way. We can win by scaring them. We can win through victory conditions, and we can win by there are some other alternate things that can come up over the course of the game. The game has a really good balance. There's also different difficulty levels to play on. Right now we're playing against just faceless, nameless invaders. They are the invading force. That's not good.
All right.
However, and if you play against the invaders, if it's your first game, you have a chance of losing, but Invader against just the invaders themselves with no extra conditions is pretty like mid to easy level difficulty.
Okay.
But there are various invaders you can play against. You can play against French plantation colony, or against Brandenburg Prussia, or against a remote British colony. And you can play on them at various difficulty levels. And those difficulty levels add more fear cards to the fear deck, which means it takes us longer to get to higher terror levels. And it means that it takes us longer to get to just winning it outright. And it gives